Well, substance abuse is a big problem in our society today. It can take all sorts of forms, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sex addiction, gambling, shopping, overspending, a whole variety of forms. How you know you have a problem with some kind of substance abuse or addiction is whether it's actually causing you some distress or harm, whether it's actually causing distress amongst your family or friends or colleagues, whether it's gotten in the way in any sort of way with your daily functioning or your ability to work. And, oftentimes also if you've gotten feedback for friends or family that they're concerned. A psychologist can help you by helping you sort of understand what thoughts and feelings might be going on that are driving you to use substances to cope. And a psychologist can help you work on understanding that and finding other ways to deal with the distress that might be going on, the difficult feelings, whatever is sort of lurking underneath the substance. And a psychologist can help you work on learning new skills and finding different ways to think and behave to deal with the problems.
Lana and Dennis have been clean for more than a year, but the real damage has happened inside their bodies, in the brain. Before Lana started using meth, a chemical called dopamine was recycled by nerve cells, or neurons, in several regions of her brain. Dopamine is a substance that helps nerve cells communicate with one another. When Lana ate chocolate cake, or watched her daughter take her first steps, her neurons released dopamine, and Lana experienced a sense of pleasure. But when methamphetamine enters the brain, neurons can't discriminate between the drug and dopamine. Since dopamine is chemically almost identical to meth, the drug's molecules can sneak into a neuron, and then, like a stick of dynamite, release an explosion of dopamine. But chronic meth use depletes the supply of dopamine stored in the brain. This means that over time, a hit of meth or a positive life experience triggers a diminished release of dopamine. Translation: Lana has a hard time experiencing any kind of pleasure.
You're numb. You're numb.
I still have a hard time laughing at jokes. So having feeling with anything, including stuff between us, it's hard to. You're still learning how to do that and getting that back, and your brain's healing.
Lana's neurons may recover, but the process could take years, and they may never completely return to normal.
When she got pregnant, she what exactly the brain looks like in someone who has addiction, who's going through this, is a pretty remarkable thing. I think it gives us a lot of insight into how it should best be treated and to also understand it. That's what I'm trying to do here. And I want to explain a couple of things quickly. First of all, this idea that someone has some sort of anticipation of taking a substance, that's sort of the first step. But then there are two important steps after that in the brain. And stick with me here. So imagine, for example, as you take a look at this animation I'm about to show you, that someone takes a drug of some sort. What happens there, and this is the middle of the brain, is that there is a sense of euphoria. That's dopamine there, those small little particles. That makes you feel good.
Is it any kind of drug? I mean, we're talking everything from cocaine to Xanax.
Yeah,
anything.
Just about any kind of drug, and not even drugs necessarily. It can be other things too, certain food substances. Sugar, for example, there can be a certain addiction quality. But I think what's important is the next step. So you have that euphoria, but in someone who's a true addict, take a look at this picture here. On the left side of the brain is, you see the bright areas? That's still feeling good. That's the euphoria. But on the right side is someone who has an addiction now, not as much of that bright spot, and that is relevant. Why? Because they need more and more of the substance to try and get that euphoria back. Think about that for a second. You take the substance, you feel good, but in an addict, that good feeling doesn't last. So what do? You take more than ever before. And that's sort of the basic, sort of simplistic, but basic form of addiction.
Are those changes permanent?
Well, they last a long time. And exactly how long is a little bit of a subject of controversy. But people say you can eventually get to the point where your brain does feel natural pleasure again, but that can take some time. What doesn't go away is this idea of the memory of the addiction. So say you're a cigarette smoker, quit for 10 years. Pick up another cigarette and start smoking again, and right away you can go back into addiction. Whereas if you've never smoked before, it would take you some time to build up that addiction again.
It's like what they say, folks that we know that have gone through treatment say once an addict, always an addict. There's truth to that, right? You aren't just cured. It's a constant battle to stay away from the temptation or feel that euphoria, right?
That's right. And people say that, but I wanted to show the pictures of the brain to really explain why that is. Okay. You see that dark areas of the brain, you need a lot of the substance to get that euphoria back. So that's why relapse occurs so quickly. They say 3 days of acute withdrawal, which is painful, 3 months where you're the most sort of subject to relapse again, and 3 years before you really start having natural sort of pleasure again from substances.